Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here between friends, a lot of friends. I will try to speak quickly, but I will enter my theme through a project that you most of my friends know, at least. And okay. So it's a project. I will speak about the universal through its difference to the particular in a way, and my relation to Athens is very important. In this description, I will speak about two house furniture, the table and the bed, and some protocols. So I start with this project, which is a house for doing nothing. This project is about, it's kind of, I had as a client this fragment from Zizek, so it's a fragment that I saw a lot. It's not, you don't have to read it all. You just go to, do you mean we should do nothing? It's if we have to be in a kind of responsible, how to say this, how to put it? If you want to really have a kind of political engagement, or be responsible in a way. Do you mean we should do nothing, just sit and wait? One should gather the courage to answer, yes, precisely that. There are situations when the only truly practical thing to do is to resist the temptation to engage immediately and to wait and see by means of a patient critical analysis. And we go at the end, withdrawing, while in reality, withdrawing to a secluded place and studying. So I thought that this would start a kind of discourse about the domestic today through a kind of investigation about the bed. So there is a kind of research I did. I will not go through it very about people working in beds or showing themselves in beds. And Zizek, of course, is one of these guys. And I tried to think that maybe in order to answer this Zizek's fragment, it would be better not to really engage to a kind of discussion with the text, but to design the bed that he would need, and then the extensions of this bed. So I will go very quickly, just to show you some drawings in the beginning. And then the minimal housing started to be, the minimal room for Zizek started to be the kind of projector, something like a laptop. And also it may need a kind of apparatus for him to be also recorded. And so it will be a kind of a small studio, finally. It will be something like a system of cameras and so yes, this was my research and my answer to Zizek that finally concluded to a system of this apartment that he needed, or to withdraw will need only a system of machines, all these machines. And I finalized the drawing for himself, but for anybody that... So this was kind of an answer to a text, and it was supposed to be... So it's supposed to be a building, so it were drawings for a building, but I decided to put this building in on the web. So I gave it to two friends, bloggers, Ethel Baranopol and Leopold Lambert. And I gave only the drawings, and they chose the drawings, and they came back with some remarks, and I engaged myself to make an answer in my blog. So this was a kind of the procedure of building this strange house. What I wanted to say, I'm sorry, this is too quick, was that this is not exactly the way that traditionally we mean stepping back or withdrawing or retreating, because the particular condition of withdrawing from the universal, let's say, condition in this example is the core of the universal condition in a way. So it's what I wanted to show, and I think in Zizek is very easy to understand it because he's a philosopher that who uses YouTube and the media very much. So I think that withdrawing is not exactly the condition of making a distance from the social sphere exactly. Withdrawing is the condition of the social sphere itself. So it was an oxymoron, a paradox, that we cannot get out of this social sphere from the first point of view, and we are always only out of this sphere. And this has also a kind of, political meaning. Here is Brussels after the Paris attacks, metro. And I also put here another quote from the US Embassy, what to do when, yes, this kind of terrorist thing happens. Shelter in place and remain at home. If you just go out, avoid large crowds. US citizens, but this is valid for everybody, are urged to avoid public places such as major pedestrian walkway and shopping centers. If you were planning to attend an event, we strongly urge you to reconsider. Exercise caution in public transportation systems, sporting events, residential areas, business offices, hotels, clubs, restaurants, places of worship, schools, public areas, shopping malls, and other destinations. Only the bed is not included in this kind of list. So I think that in the same time, we have this kind of room that I'm very interested in this kind of understanding the architectural artifact as a very bizarre thing. And also by hearing before the presentation of Christian, I thought that there is a kind of need that is obvious for me to rethink about what the role of the architect is. What is an architect, again, after the tradition that started maybe from Brunelleschi, when the architect was this person that's a enlightened person with mathematical knowledge, and etc. And when he starts, when we consider today, I try to think about myself also. So I try to do this kind of, I also do this representation of all this problem in a way, answering to a kind of intellectual discourse, also with these material conditions. This is from Italy, I did. And I wanted also just to go quickly again through this understanding of the house or the room as a system of objects. That also leads me to, this was done in the past in relation to some deserted islands where I did some projects. But I wanted to showcase in a way that this kind of sweet prison that is the result of Zizek's concept is also a way, gives to us a way to speak about the city. So I think that these are not representation exactly of deserted islands, or this desertedness is related absolutely to a conceptualization of the contemporary city, where we have a unit, a room, small domestic space, and opposite to it, a theological concept that may be the infrastructure itself, and we have to understand what this infrastructure would mean again. So the nature is not anymore the case. I'm not speaking about the nature exactly. It's something like an interface maybe, or something like a concept of background that is void. And we could think about a population of this kind of rooms as a description again of the city. So for me, this already brings this idea of archipelago that I was working during the last years for, and it's an archipelago of very distinct rooms that is supposed to form a kind of image of the city of today. So if we think about this archipelago, the sea of this archipelago maybe is the city. And so all this kind of, these are many Zizek in houses, or this polykatikia of Zizek, multi-store Zizek apartments. And the vertical village that replies also to my response to this type of possible way of thinking. I'm very interested into giving form and shape and materiality to a conceptual content. So I was thinking about these huge constructions that would describe a kind of mobile living with a vertical infrastructure where people could plug in with their ship container, already ready-made houses. I was telling you that it was my investigation about the bed, and there is a loser inside the house. I have written this for a Hakave publication last year. Let's say that there was a bit, my narrative, it's that maybe there was a war between the bed and the table that took part in the house, in the home space. And I think that the bed won, and it's the bed that I mentioned before. It's this bed that is not exactly, a space where we withdraw from. It's not a space of withdrawal. This bed is a space that is connected. It's a kind of part of this infrastructure. It's a position in the infrastructure, the bed I was speaking till now. And I'm thinking about the table as the loser in the house, which was the place, the meeting place in a way, sometimes. So I tried to elaborate a system of thinking about the table that could put it again in the city. But from this position to do this, I had to think about something that would be much more bizarre. It was like a residue of kind of tables that are thrown from the houses, out of the houses. And that we could think about a new public space, maybe, which would need something like a protocol to organize this kind of remains from tables that do not belong anymore to the house, to the household. So I started this investigation with a work on protocols. Protocols, I meant with protocols something like controlled content structures, so that I was interested to work, and I asked my friend Thanos Zartaloudis, who is a Greek-British law specialist to work with me. And in order to organize some legislative platforms that would be something like literature in a way, but also practically possible understandings of organizing legal occupations in the city. I was interested in the city of Athens. This is part of a show in Swiss Architectural Museum that was about these protocols. And my table example was, first of all, was this open-air office. So these are the protocols. You cannot read them all. They're boring in a way, but they were supposed to be boring. But they're very precise, and they really describe a condition of sharing the use of spaces which were undefined in the city center. The city center of Athens is a very idiosyncratic space that you have to visit in order to understand. It seems very vivid sometimes, but all its upper part, only the ground floor are functioning, and the upper part of it, which is 5 or 6 floors high, is really empty. So this was my first work on a protocol space. It's the open-air office. It was done in Athens, and I used this kind of material from IKEA. It was cheaper than recycling. Recycling was very expensive. And it was providing to an abandoned area in the center of Athens water, shadow, electricity, web, free web, and light during the night. So it's a kind of understanding of it is a kind of described legislative proposition that we did together with Thanos, and also I did this additional protocol that explains kind of bizarre function that was absolutely normal in a way. I'm very interested in to create norms. The whole modernistic art modern art was conceived on this kind of exception strategies. And maybe I have to conclude here. Maybe you know Viktor Shklovsky, for instance, who's a kind of literature writer in Russia, very important one. And his very interesting text, Art as Technique, where the whole idea about art is that it has to be against the norm, against normality. And I think that the infrastructure I'm trying to define, the infrastructure I'm trying to describe, is the apparatus which brings normality in. So I think that we were also in Badiou, if you see, I think it's a very good analogy, Badiou and Shklovsky. Badiou is kind of creating an understanding of what the political is related to an idealization of the exceptional moment, that is the event in my point of view. And I think that it goes again against whatever is the norm. It's again for the exception. And I think that maybe it's time again to, because we have also all this bibliography of Foucault, which is absolutely important and interesting, against any kind of law. But I think that it's maybe time to reconsider a law in a different, from a different point of view, and think that if we can again touch an area which was till now somehow prohibited, and think about the possibility of the domestic and the infrastructural, again through a kind of designing this kind of protocols. Can we think about a city which would perform protocols in order to check the possibility of a different understanding of the common? So I don't know if this all this work of the last years was exactly a realistic procedure going towards a real hands-on legislative work, which would bring the web back into a kind of legislative, and we need to have maybe a new understanding of a contract, a social contract for the web, which will be universal and not, again, local. But I don't know if this is a real, also only procedure, or if it's a scenography. If I work only for scenographies, for coexistence, for allegories of the community, or if I give images of the lost common. I'm very interested in all those scripts that propose even landscapes, common landscapes, even if they are fake. Thank you. That's all.